I'm here as the most important thing you will see today, and that is a citizen of the United States of America and of the Commonwealth of Virginia. I'm your boss, okay? You all are here to do one thing, and that is to protect my rights. Not my life, not my opportunities, not any of those things. It's your job to protect my rights.
The Virginia Crime Commission recently held a public hearing for residents and various groups to voice their opinions on gun control. Rose Winston is a survivor of gun violence. Winston says she's in favor of stronger gun control laws.
I also fall into the category of being a member of a survivor of domestic household violence. Several months ago, I had a roommate who went berserk in the evening time, went berserk and charged me a gun and threatened to kill me. I'm shocked to see that in this state of Virginia, if someone pulls a gun on you, that is only considered a misdemeanor. Her initial charge was only that of brandishing a weapon. I talked to a police officer across the state over there in D.C. He said, ma'am, if someone pulls a gun on you, that's considered a felony, 2 years in jail automatically.
David Adams is the vice president of the Virginia Shooting Sports Association.
I told the Crime Commission that the proposals that they're going over from the governor would have no impact on crime or on suicides or on the mass shootings that we've encountered here over the last several months. They want to ban semi-automatic firearms, typically called assault rifles, that include AR-15s, the most popular rifles in the country. Those rifles are used in a very small percentage of homicides, while some of the shooters that have committed mass shootings recently have used AR-15s. The one in Virginia Beach used handguns, as well as the Virginia Tech shooting in 2007. Most shooters are using multiple types of firearms, so just banning one class of firearms is not going to have an impact on crime.
Adams cited an incident involving police in Philadelphia as an example of gun laws not being enforced.
I'd like to see them target or create things that we know that work, targeting violent criminals, putting them in jail. The situation that happened in Philadelphia earlier this week, where the police officers were trying to serve a warrant on someone who had previous firearm charges that district attorney in Philadelphia did not prosecute. That individual never should have been on the street to where he could have done what he did shooting those police officers.
The Crime Commission also heard from delegates who introduced gun control legislation, including 95th District Delegate Marcia Price.
I'm betting that not many of you on this commission live in fear of gang and gun violence in your zip code. I'm pretty sure that not many of you are afraid to go out on your porch, take your kids to a playground, or go on certain streets for fear of being shot and killed. And not many of you live in the contradiction of being both paralyzed with fear of gunshots when you hear an argument break out, and also desensitized to the sound of gunshots far off in the distance. I have introduced House Bill 4005, which would allow local governments to regulate firearms, which is currently prohibited in our code. The ordinances would be subject to our constitutions, federal law, and state law, but would allow for local leaders who know their gun violence in their communities to prevent it and keep their residents safe. The geographic diversity of our Commonwealth is one of our strengths, but it also comes with a diversity of experience in gun violence. The language of House Bill 4005 is permissive and not mandatory, and would allow localities like Newport News, Falls Church, Fairfax County, Alexandria, Fredericksburg, Norfolk, Roanoke, Charlottesville, Albemarle County, and Richmond to move forward with the ordinances that they seek for their residents.
Price also introduced House Bill 4033, 4034, and 4035.
Would offer one-time grants for Newport News, Hampton, Norfolk, Petersburg, and Roanoke to fund community assessments aligned with the Youth Promise Act through the lens of prevention, intervention, enforcement, and reentry. This independent lens would help us discover what is working well and what are the voids and gaps as the community tries to provide for prevention measures in its own community. House Bill 4034 would establish a fund and grant program that would support survivors of gun violence who have been paralyzed or disabled to make adaptations to their homes so that it would be more accessible. And lastly, Mr. Chairman, I think that there has been sufficient data showing that we have a gun violence issue in our Commonwealth. but House Joint Resolution 4005 would direct JMAR to study the particular effects of gun violence on the Commonwealth to help us do a better job of prevention. In order to move some of my colleagues on issues like food insecurity, school safety, workforce development, and healthcare, they needed to see a report. This resolution would direct a study to be conducted for the overall physical, emotional, mental, and community level socioeconomic health of communities like mine who are ravaged by gun violence. Mr. Chairman, on all of my social media platforms, messages of some pretty angry Virginians have told me that people kill people, not guns.
State Senator Adam Ebbin represents the 30th District, and he's the co-chair of the Gun Violence Prevention Caucus.
I'm here because more than 1,000 Virginians died at the hand of a gun in 2018, and they don't need to be dying at the hand of a gun. Well, not all gun tragedies are preventable. There are so many that we could. Guns don't need to fall into the wrong hands, and we don't need the weaponry of war available easily to Virginians or to anyone who's not in the military or law enforcement.
He wants universal background checks, extreme risk protection laws, and a ban on assault weapons.
I do support a culture of responsible gun ownership, and I don't think that having gun violence prevention laws is in any way inconsistent with someone's right to hunt or someone's right to self-defense or someone's right to use a gun for sport, unless it's someone who should not have a gun, meaning a child, someone who's been institutionalized, or someone who's been incarcerated as a felon.
Charniele Hearing is the chair of the House Democratic Caucus and is a member of the Virginia Crime Commission.
We heard a lot of bills and a lot of testimony from the public and organizations. I think there are some good policy initiatives that have been presented. The question is what happens next? I pressed for at least a meeting of the executive committee. I don't think that the Crime Commission can tackle everything that has been filed within the short period before session when we're supposed to come back in November. But I think there are a few pieces of legislation that we could probably study and get endorsed in time to head to the floor.
Hearing says the testimonials of Virginia residents' personal stories were impactful.
Delegate Price's presentation about what she's facing in her community, what people are facing, I think that resonates with so many people who have experienced gun violence or if gun violence is happening in their neighborhoods that people can relate to. And again, I think there are some common sense measures that we can endorse and get to the floor for a vote.
According to Hearing, a few of the bills introduced to the Crime Commission are not new.
Some of these bills have been filed for many years, and it is a delay. One of the delegates on the other side of the aisle even said that, admitted that this was a delay tactic, and I find that unfortunate because if people are really serious about this and they needed a study, this could have happened years ago. But look, we're here now. And it's important that we get something done this year. And there's no reason we can't have a study completed, in my opinion, before even the November session. We can come back even earlier. There's some things that both sides of the argument agree on. First, the red flag bill. You've heard from a presenter from the Heritage Foundation as well as a host of law enforcement officials and others there's one thing that we all agree on, and is that initiative. Let's start with that. Maybe we can start making progress.
In Richmond, Elaine Rackley for Breaking Through News.